JonBenet Ramsey. On the morning of December 26, 1996, a call shook the city of Boulder, Colorado. JonBenet Ramsey, a 6-year-old child beauty queen, had disappeared from her home. Her mother, Patsy Ramsey, found a nearly 3-page ransom note on the staircase. It demanded $118,000, an amount curiously close to the work bonus of her father, John Ramsey. The note, written on a notepad and with a pen belonging to the family, was the first of many bizarre elements that would turn the case into a national mystery. For hours, the police treated the case as a kidnapping. The house, however, was not secured, allowing critical contamination of the crime scene by friends and family who came to offer support. The initial police search of the residence was superficial and failed to locate the girl. It was John Ramsey himself who, hours later, discovered his daughter's body in a little-used room in the basement. JonBenet was wrapped in her favorite white blanket, with duct tape over her mouth and a makeshift garrote around her neck. The autopsy was conclusive and brutal. The cause of death was strangulation, associated with a severe skull fracture. The kidnapping narrative crumbled, giving way to a murder investigation that had occurred within the walls of that house. Suspicion immediately fell upon the family. The lack of signs of a break-in, the nature of the note, and statements that seemed inconsistent created a fog of mistrust over John, Patsy, and even their 9-year-old brother, Burke. Decades have passed, and the JonBenet Ramsey case remains one of the greatest failures in American criminal justice. Unknown DNA evidence found on the victim's clothing points to an intruder but does not explain the complexity of the crime scene. Theories accumulate, books have been written, and documentaries produced, but the truth remains buried under layers of family secrets and a flawed investigation. The central question has never been answered. Who killed the little beauty queen? Madeleine McCann. On the night of May 3, 2007, a face would become unforgettable. Madeleine McCann, a 3-year-old British girl, disappeared from a holiday apartment in Praia da Luz, Portugal. Her vanishing would spark the most intense and high-profile search for a missing person in modern history, a case that remains unsolved to this day. The McCann family was vacationing at the Ocean Club Resort. That evening, her parents, Kate and Cherrie, were dining with a group of friends at a tapas restaurant about 50 meters from the apartment. They left Madeleine and her 2-year-old twin siblings sleeping in the room, which was unlocked. The group arranged to take turns checking on the children periodically. Around 10 p.m., Kate McCann went to check and found Madeleine's bed empty. The bedroom window was open, and the little girl was gone. The initial response from the Portuguese police was chaotic and widely criticized. The crime scene was not properly secured, allowing for massive contamination of potential evidence. The investigation, marked by twists and turns, reached its most controversial point when the parents themselves, Kate and Cherrie, were declared arguidos, or formal suspects, in September 2007, only to be later cleared for lack of evidence. The case became a global phenomenon, with countless false tips and leads that went nowhere. Years later, the investigation gained a new focus. Christian Bruckner, a German citizen and convicted sex offender who was living in the Algarve region at the time of the disappearance. Considered the prime suspect by German authorities, he is serving time for other crimes but denies any involvement. Despite new searches and the strong suspicion surrounding Bruckner, Madeleine's body has never been found. The case is an open wound, a puzzle of investigative failures and incessant pain, which keeps the world asking the same question posed that night in Portugal. Where is Madeleine? Kyron Horman. On June 4, 2010, a photograph captured 7-year-old Kyron Horman smiling proudly in front of his project at the science fair at Skyline Elementary School in Portland, Oregon. Hours later, he vanished. The mystery that followed would not point to a stranger in the shadows, but to the last person who saw him alive. That morning, Kyron went to school with his stepmother, Cherrie Mahan. After visiting the science fair, Cherrie claims she last saw him walking down the hallway toward his classroom. However, due to a communication failure at the school, Kyron was never marked as absent. The alarm was only raised late in the afternoon when he did not get off the school bus, hours after his probable disappearance. The largest search operation in Oregon's history was launched, but no trace of the boy was ever found. The investigation quickly focused on Cherrie. Inconsistencies in her accounts of where she was after leaving the school and her failure on polygraph tests raised strong suspicions, although she has never been formally charged. The case took an even darker turn when allegations surfaced that Cherrie had tried to hire a landscaper to murder her husband and Kyron's father, Jacob Wetterling, months after the disappearance. The revelation led to their divorce and a restraining order against her. Today, the Cherrie Mahan case remains at a painful impasse. His body has never been found. Cherrie Mahan continues to be the primary person of interest, but she maintains her innocence and has never been arrested for the crime. Kyron's mother, Desiree Young, leads a relentless campaign for justice, convinced that the stepmother knows what happened. The smiling boy from the science fair remains frozen in time, the protagonist of a family mystery that refuses to offer answers. Etan Patz. On May 25, 1979, a 6-year-old boy named Etan Patz left his New York apartment for a 2-block walk to the school bus stop. It was the first time his parents had let him go alone. He never arrived. That short journey did not just mark the end of his life. For many, it marked the end of an era of innocence for an entire nation. Etan was wearing his future captain hat and carrying $1 to buy a soda. When the school reported he had not arrived, one of the most intense searches in New York history began. His father, a photographer, spread his son's face all over the city, making Etan one of the first missing persons to have a mass media campaign. He became the symbol of a generation, the boy on the milk cartons, sparking a national movement for the rights of missing children. For decades, the case remained a ghost in the city's conscience, an open wound without answers. Several suspects were investigated over the years, but no concrete evidence emerged. The mystery seemed destined never to be solved until, in 2012, the New York police reopened the case, focusing on an old lead, a man named Pedro Hernandez, who in 1979 was a young stock clerk in a convenience store on Etan's route. Hernandez confessed to the police what he had already admitted to family members. He lured Etan into the store's basement with the promise of a soda, strangled him, and put his body in a box, leaving it in an alley. After a first trial ended without a verdict, a second jury found him guilty in 2017, almost 38 years after the crime. Justice was served, but Etan Patz's body was never found. The date of his disappearance, May 25th, is now National Missing Children's Day in the U.S., a permanent legacy for the boy who never reached his destination, Ben Needham. On July 24, 1991, on the sunny Greek island of Kos, little Ben Needham, a 21-month-old British toddler, disappeared without a trace. He was playing outside the farmhouse his grandparents were renovating, and in the blink of an eye, he was gone. His disappearance sparked a decades-long search that crossed borders and fueled a hope that, in the end, revealed a tragic truth. The Needham family had moved from England in search of a new life. On that day, Ben was in the care of his grandparents. While the boy played with his toy cars in the dirt, they were working inside the house. For a brief moment, Ben was out of sight. When they went to look for him, there was complete silence. He had vanished from a rural and isolated area, with nothing or no one suspicious being seen or heard. For more than 20 years, the theory of an abduction dominated the case. The family, led by his mother, Cherrie Mahan, firmly believed that Ben was alive, perhaps taken by a family who could not have children. Countless age progression photos were released, and hundreds of possible sightings were investigated throughout Greece. The truth only began to emerge in 2016, when British police conducted a new and extensive forensic search on the island. A crucial witness revealed that a local excavator operator, Konstantinos Barkas, now deceased, had confessed in a panic to accidentally running over and killing the boy in 1991, burying his body to hide the terrible mistake. During the excavation, police found a toy car that belonged to Ben. The investigation was officially concluded. He died in an accident. However, his remains have never been located, leaving his family with a painful answer but without a place to grieve. Jacob Wetterling. On October 22, 1989, on a quiet rural road in St. Joseph, Minnesota, 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling was riding his bike home with his brother and a friend. In an instant, a random act of violence ended his childhood. Jacob's kidnapping would launch one of the longest and most heart-wrenching searches in American history, turning a young boy's name into a national symbol of hope. A masked and armed man emerged from the shadows. He ordered him and his brother to lie on the ground and asked their ages. Then, he told Jacob's brother and friend to run into the woods without looking back, under the threat of being shot. When they were gone, the man took Jacob. It was the last time he was seen alive, disappearing into a darkness that would last for nearly 3 decades. The case became an open wound for the community. The police investigated tens of thousands of leads without success. During this time, Jacob's mother, Patty Wetterling, became one of the most important activists for the rights of missing children in the United States. The family promoted 11 traits for Jacob, encouraging kindness and justice, keeping alive the hope of finding him, a sentiment that inspired an entire nation. The truth, when it finally came in 2016, was devastating. Danny Heinrich, a suspect from early in the case, was arrested on charges unrelated to Jacob. In exchange for a plea deal, he confessed everything. He had kidnapped Abu Zaid and murdered Jacob on the same night of the abduction. He led investigators to the place where he buried the boy's remains, putting a brutal end to 27 years of uncertainty. In his name, the Jacob Wetterling Act was created, which established the National Sex Offender Registry, a legacy of protection born from the deepest tragedy. Cherrie Mahan. On February 22, 1985, a yellow school bus stopped at the end of a rural road in Pennsylvania, as it did every day. 8-year-old Cherrie Mahan got off, just 150 yards from the safety of her home. She never completed the short walk. Her disappearance would become one of the most frustrating mysteries in American history, defined not only by her smiling face, but by the image of a blue van. Cherrie got off the bus with other classmates. The stop was at the beginning of her long gravel driveway. As her friends headed to their homes, Cherrie started up the hill toward hers. It was the last time she was seen. The children later reported a crucial detail to the police: a blue or greenish Dodge van with a distinct mural of a mountain with a skier had been seen following the bus or parked near the stop at that time. The search for Cherrie began within minutes, but no sign of her was found in the snow that covered the area. The investigation focused intensely on the van. In an innovative tactic for the time, a sketch of the vehicle was included on missing person posters, making it the haunting symbol of the case. Police investigated thousands of vans across the country, but the exact vehicle described by the children was never positively identified. It became a ghost van, the key to a mystery that no one could solve. Cherrie Mahan was declared legally dead in 1998, but her missing person case remains open. Her mother, Janice, has never stopped searching, keeping the story alive in the hope that someone, somewhere, knows what happened on that winter afternoon. Cherrie's story is a harrowing reminder of how a daily routine can turn into a lifetime of questions somewhere along a short walk home. The Pedrinho Case. On the night of January 21st, 1986, in the maternity ward of a hospital in Brasilia, a newborn baby was taken from his mother's arms by a woman disguised as a nurse. The kidnapping of Pedro, who would become known as the Pedrinho Case, initiated one of the longest and most moving searches in Brazil, a story of pain, perseverance, and an unbelievable twist. The woman dressed in white acted with a calculated coldness. She told the mother, Maria Auxiliadora Rosalina de Jesus, that she needed to take the baby for a routine exam. She left the room and simply disappeared into the hospital corridors. What should have been a moment of joy turned into an instant nightmare, leaving behind an empty cradle and desperate parents. The search began immediately, but without concrete leads, the case went cold and became a national symbol of pain. For 16 years, the lives of Maria and her husband Jairo were an incessant search. They never lost hope. Pedrinho's story became an emblem of the struggle of parents with missing children, an open wound that Brazil followed, year after year, seemingly destined never to heal until the arrival of the digital age. The turning point came in 2002, thanks to an anonymous tip made over the internet. The investigation led the police to Goiânia, to a woman named Vilma Martins Costa and her teenage son, registered as Osvaldo. A DNA test confirmed what seemed impossible. Osvaldo was Pedrinho. Vilma was arrested and confessed not only to the kidnapping of Pedro, but also to that of another child, a girl, years earlier. The reunion of Pedrinho with his biological parents moved the country, but it also revealed the complexity of a life built on a lie, forcing a young man to reconcile the love for the one who raised him with the devastating truth about who he was.